My first time in Japan, more than anything, it opened my eyes to how diverse music can be, that you can transcend genres, you can blend influences, from my physical appearance to my death voice in video games, blending unexpected things. That's sort of become my niche. When there's no preconceived notions of genre, there's also no expectations, and through that, there's no limitation, and I find that immensely compelling.
Hey there, and thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another great conversation today. If you like the show and want to support us, please hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content week after week. And if you're feeling extra generous, give this video a like and share your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today we welcome Endigo. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're a musician, music producer here in Japan.
Yes.
General artist, and do a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. That's the best way to describe it. It's hard figuring out the shortest way to describe who I am, what I do, because I just do everything.
So maybe if we dive into the story of
Sure.
Endigo, we'll find out a little bit more about all the things you're up to today.
Hopefully.
What brought you to Japan in the first place?
Well, it was always my dream to come here at all. Very early on, born in the 90s, I was watching, some anime on TV back in my native Stockholm, Sweden, especially Digimon, big, favorite show early on. But I really got really intrigued by Japan and Japanese culture, really through Spirited Away, I think.
No.
Yeah, 2002. I saw ads for it in Sweden, and I was like, what is this? It's like Disney, but cool. I love Disney, shout out. No, that's kind of where it started. And then, my interest in Japan sort of grew, especially through video games. And eventually I stumbled onto J-Rock and Visual K. Was already a big metal fan. And yeah, really J-Rock was the big catalyst for wanting to come here. Which I eventually did in 2016, first time on tour with my old band. And, fell in love with the country immediately and oh shit, I gotta uproot my whole life and move here now, I guess. And I did.
So we jumped into a few things.
Yes.
You said you came in 2016 for the first time with your band.
Yes.
So you were a musician already back home.
Yes, I've been a musician pretty much always. I got drafted by my school when I was 9 to be in the school choir. Because I was one of the only kids who could sing, I suppose. And then I joined a music school at age 10, full-time, a school that has music education, hours every day. Went there for 6 years, studied classical music, classical singing, started my first band at age 10, because I was I really want to be a rock star. My dad played the guitar, was a musician, and I was I want to be a rock star. That was the first dream, which eventually turned into a J-Rock star, sorta.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've been playing guitar and singing and doing bands for 20 plus years. So that's kind of the core of everything I do, I suppose. And then everything has kind of branched from there.
Your interest kind of musically from Japan came from J-Rock? What
Yes.
were your influences back then?
You mean in terms of J-Rock?
Yeah.
Well, the first band I ever discovered, and I was already hugely into, especially power metal, metalcore, more speedy metal kind of stuff. A lot of German metal, big influences early on, Gamma Ray, Halloween, those sort of bands. And I don't know, how detailed do you want to go on this?
Let's go.
Okay, cool. So, in it must have been 2006 maybe or something. There used to be a music festival in Sweden called Hultsfredsfestivalen.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out, never went. But on their website that year, they had a public poll where anybody could, vote or suggest bands for the festival to book for the following year. And you could see the number of votes, whatever. And it was public results, so you could see who voted for what. And the top 5 was Korn, Slipknot, whatever. Number 1 was something called Dir en Grey, which people might know is one of the biggest Japanese metal bands of all time. I didn't know what a Dir en Grey was. I didn't know what that meant. I was what is this? So I Googled them, and I was okay, they're a rock band from Japan. So I went on YouTube, I suppose, just searched their name, found a song called Umbrella by them, which is, fast, heavy, party, speedy song in Japanese. And already being so curious at this point about Japan through Spirited Away and through video games and everything, and then finding out that there's metal in Japanese, which seems obvious in hindsight, but I didn't even think to look into that. Finding Dir and Grey and like listening to them, and I'm like, oh my god, this sounds like. I remember thinking that particular song, like, wow, this sounds exactly like Iron Maiden, which I'm really into, which it doesn't in hindsight. It's very different, but got into Dir and Grey through that. That led me down the rabbit hole of more J-rock. Eventually found a band called Muck, which turned out to be my favorite band of all time. They came to play in Stockholm, and my friends were like, do you want to go see Muck with me? And I was like, I don't know what that is. This is some Japanese. I'll go. And it was like, you know, when you find, you know, God or something. It was a religious experience almost, being at that Muck concert in Stockholm, 2007.
An enlightenment in music.
Exactly.
Like a revelation.
Yeah, because just the way they mix the genres, like they're heavy. They sound like Korn or Slipknot, but then they go into these ballads, they go into reggae, they go into like techno. They just mix everything, and it was so beautiful. And it, more than anything, it opened my eyes to how diverse music can be. You know, that you can transcend genres, you can blend influences, and you can like reach beyond the expected status quo, whatever it might be. And I think that and Muck's songwriting philosophy, now we're getting really way early, but I think Muck's songwriting philosophy largely influenced my life as a whole, trying to blend genres, blend styles, you know, from my physical appearance to my death voice in video games. Blending unexpected things is like a big thing I enjoy. And I think that probably came from Muck. So another shout out.
So they really influence you and
yeah,
like kind of change your life as a,
definitely,
let's say, like late teenage, early 20s.
Yeah, well, I was like 14, 15 at the time. So like still like I don't know, malleable, if you will. Still doing bands and like, you know, having my like already back then very alternative style, long white dreadlocks at the time. And just like seeing this whole new world open up, and I was like, I need to know what this J-rock is. I need to know what Japan is on a like, you know, more serious level.
So 2016, you actually come here for the first time. Do you remember?
I do. So yeah, so it took another 9 years from that Muck concert till I actually came here. But yeah, so that was on tour with my band, and at this point, I've been doing I've had a lot of bands at this point, 2016, and they have been getting progressively more visual K over time, which of course is this J-rock subgenre where all the members are very flamboyant, bit of a glam rock drag hybrid kind of. So I was in a band at the time called Batar, and we were a very visual K inspired metal band. One of the few ones in Europe at the time who were like doing things on a sort of bigger level. And yeah, we came to Japan on tour, supporting the song we did for Tekken 7, jumping a lot of topics here. Came here to just do a couple shows, shoot a couple music videos. And that was my like first time in Japan, like, you know, the dream come true. I mean, you know, first time you set foot here. And was here for 5 weeks, and, you know, went back to Sweden and like, oh my God, this is the best place I've ever been to. And I guess I have to uproot everything and move here. And I, you know, did. So yeah, it was, you know, I didn't speak any Japanese at the time at all. Could not read katakana, struggling to order drinks, you know, in bars, but, you know, it was fun.
So what was it that made you kind of go to the point of, I need to uproot my life, leave Sweden and come here?
Great question. You know, I think it was, if we really try and break it down, I think it was the abundance of culture everywhere, of pop culture, of color, and the unapologetic expression of culture at any turn. You go down a normal street in Shinjuku and you look at like the drain, like the well the drain on the ground, and it has like little flowers on it. There's art everywhere, and it transcends society in a way that was new to me as a Swede. Even though Sweden is a big country for music export, but the way it's so prevalent here, and especially metal, like you can walk down a street here and hear clothing stores just blast death metal, you know, on the street. That would never happen in Europe, to my knowledge, not in Sweden at least.
No, probably not in Sweden.
Probably not, you know, being the home of death metal, but still, and that just blew my mind, you know. The availability, the abundance and the availability of culture, concerts everywhere, every block, every night. the way I perceived it at the time. But also the video game culture, how prevalent it was, how mainstream video games seemed to be. Seeing these huge displays in Shibuya run video game ads with metal music, that it was like such a like, I don't know, fantasy dream come true. I've always loved big cities, and this, like, it checked every box of like what I wanted to live within, I suppose.
Back then, you have your band Batard, and you're based in Sweden.
Yes.
And now you want to move to Japan.
Sure.
What was your action plan? How did you make that move?
Well, number one is I gotta learn to speak Japanese, because my Japanese is basically a 0. I did learn hiragana on my own when I was like 14, just through like borrowing my friend's Genki book. So I learned hiragana way before, and already was kind of interested. But I came back from that tour towards the end of 2016, and I was like, I gotta start there, I guess. And I was also unemployed at the time and could use a bit of cash. So I was like, well, I'll just join a university program in Sweden. You get a lot of good like student grants for money, so I can live off of that for a bit, and I can study Japanese full time. So it's like such a win-win. And then when I graduate eventually in 3 years or whatever, I'll get a little bachelor's degree, and I can move to Japan with that. Sounds great. So I did that. I enrolled in university as of January 2017, starting Japanese full time. From scratch, from absolute 0. And that was incredible. It was a distance course. It was all like self-study at home, and then little like breakout chat rooms with other students. It was cool. Very high tempo, I remember thinking at the time. But learned a lot. And within a year from that, I was also doing YouTube as a hobby, as a YouTuber. And around mid-2017, my YouTube channel blew up. I had a couple of viral hits, and suddenly my YouTube channel was bringing in a lot of traffic and a lot of opportunity, a lot of cash. So I was like, I've always wanted to live as a full-time musician, creator, or something. This might be the opportunity I've waited for. There's no way I can do this, though, while doing university studies at the same time. So I dropped out of university that same first year, after 10 years only of studies, to pursue YouTube full time. And that, I mean, at this point, it's been 8 years. I'm still doing it full time from that, really. I branched up from just YouTube since then. But the YouTube channel, big break in 2017 was like the catalyst of everything. So,
what were those viral hits?
It really started, I was already doing like a lot of YouTube for years, but the big break at that time was, there's a guy called PewDiePie, might have heard of him. Also lives here in Japan.
Also Swede.
Also Swede, different city, Gothenburg though, but still. So I was a big fan of him at the time, and he held a green screen competition at the time. So he filmed himself standing in front of a green screen and did a bunch of moves and one-liners and stuff. And then the competition was like, hey, everybody download this footage, and whoever makes the best edit of it can, you can get featured in the video, get a shout out, whatever. Me being a, professional music producer at the time, and a video editor too, for the matter, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to remix this video. So I downloaded it, and I auto-tuned all of it. I made a song out of it called My Name is Jeff. Some people might remember. And I made like this big special effects, super ambitious green screen music video to it as well. And he reacted to it in his follow-up video. I was like, wow, this is so good. A shout out to Endigo. So I got a lot of initial recognition from that. So that was cool. I made a bunch of like, thank you, PewDiePie videos. And we talked for a little bit. Then he deleted his Twitter, and I had no more contact with him since. But he seems to be doing well. From that, really, I just kept doing it. I kept doing a lot of YouTuber remixing other gaming YouTubers, especially. I went from PewDiePie to like other people of the similar level, Jacksepticeye, Markiplier. And then eventually there was another big YouTuber based in the UK called Dan TDM, another shout out, who I also remixed. And that first one I did of him absolutely blew up, like even more. We started this, we started talking a little bit, and him and me, I kind of kept building from there, really. So it definitely started with these remixes. And over time, I've tried to sort of go back to, turning this music production remix venture into more like producing my own stuff. So I've gone more into making fan songs for popular video games, stuff like that. I've done a lot of meme songs online that have gone extremely viral, some of them. So that's also been a big source of my career, I suppose.
So now moving to Japan,
sure,
you come here and you have this kind of music career you want to develop.
Yes.
Did you come here to work for a music production company? Did you come here with a mindset like, I'm just going to straight up start my own thing? What was your plan when you arrived?
Sure. So I moved here in 2019 proper. And at this point, between that first tour in 2016, 2017 and 18, I probably came here as a tourist like 4 or 5 times just to hang out because I love the country. But only as a tourist. So at this time, I was still doing YouTube full time, my YouTube channel. So I was doing the remixes and like Let's Plays and all the YouTube stuff, posting 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Yes. So it was usually 2 or 3 remixes or songs a week, and then like vlogs in between Let's Play. So a lot of work, but it sustained me for a while. And eventually in 2019, the band I was in, Batar that I mentioned, ended. And so I was sort of like, well, I have nothing tying me to Sweden anymore because the band's based in Sweden. And I was like, well, you know what? Let's just move to Japan finally. How do we do that though? I ended up applying for a language school here to study Japanese because remember I dropped out of university, right? Yeah. So I applied for a school in Tokyo and I got in and I came in and I basically passed my YouTubing more or less just to pursue my Japanese studies. So I came here, I joined the language school and I studied for about 1 year. Was initially thinking to study longer, maybe like 2 years, but it ended up just being 1 year. Because I got really bored with being in class again. I was like, I should be out there making music like the old days. So after the 1 year, I was like, well, what do I do now? So I took the JLPT. I was able, thankfully, to get N2 right away. So I was like, well, okay, I have that at least. What do I do now? And someone suggested, I have a painter. I got a lot of shout outs in this video. I have a painter friend in Tokyo, a guy called August Villela, who's a very, very talented, very successful oil painter. And so we talked and he was like, yeah, I'm on an artist visa. No big deal. You can probably get an artist visa too. And I did some research and I'm like, Japan issues around 100 artist visas a year. I'm like, oh my God. But I'm like, okay, YOLO, let's go for it. So I went for it and I got it. I got the artist visa.
What is required for the artist visa?
So number one is you need a bachelor degree as any other visa, which I don't have. So plan B is if you can prove to the government that you have the means to sustain yourself, but more importantly, prove that you're like famous enough, that you're rich and famous and successful and important enough, and that you have been that consistently for 10 years. 10 years. If you can prove that, then they can make an exception instead of a bachelor degree. So I had to, this was, remember, in 2020. So I had to go way back in time, back to 2010, dig up old like tour posters from my old band. Thankfully, I had music that I've released like with older bands back in, like that was still on Spotify back in 2010. So I submitted that and like, hey, here's a concert poster of me. I'm 19 in this photo. And just, submitted evidence basically of being successful for 10 years, which I wasn't, but I by my standards. But I was able to do that, and I guess it was good enough. So
you got the artist.
I got the artist visa, and I had it for 1 year, and then I was like, well, now what? Because I kind of wanted to expand, and eventually through a lot of soul searching and philosophizing, a lot of roads came together to like, well, I should just start my own company here, because I do want to do more business here on a bigger scale than just like, oh, I'm a YouTuber making music. I want to make moves, So I'm like, I'll start my own company, and I did that, and I got a business manager visa through that, and that's what I'm still doing. I'm still doing that company.
So let's talk about the music you do.
Sure.
You make death metal, is that correct?
That's one of the things I make. I make a lot of stuff. I'm a singer and a musician and a guitarist, right? I've been in a lot of bands. Not so much death metal, more just melodic metal. But I do a lot of death singing for video games. That's sort of become my niche in Japan. Like when a game needs death metal vocals, they call me usually at this point, which is kind of cool. Was not what I set out to do, but here we are. Yeah.
The metal scene. Earlier you said Sweden is a birthplace of death metal. What is the metal scene generally like here in Japan? From my outside perspective, it doesn't seem like it's such a big community, but I'm sure there are.
There is. I mean, it depends on what you compare it to. Like, it's not mainstream like pop music is, of course. But again, compared to, at least Sweden, it's huge. It's so prevalent. And that's what was really cool to me. The fact that you could hear death metal or any metal just playing from shops in the streets. Mm-hmm. You can hear it in karaoke, you hear it in restaurants, even just rock in general, and like pop rock, pop punk. Like, it's everywhere. It's in TV ads. It's you have all these major level metal bands playing like arenas all the time, and that to me was something that I never seen in Sweden. There's like one or two domestic Swedish rock bands at all that can probably play an arena, whereas like here there's a lot. Because the thing is, like, Japan is such a big country compared to, again, Sweden, tiny population and everything. So even if the metal scene here is relatively small comparatively, there's still a lot of people in that scene, in that tiny niche, probably bigger than like most mainstream things in Sweden. So, a small thing in Japan coming from Sweden is still huge to me.
How do you categorize the different, if metal is an umbrella genre?
Sure.
You have like death metal, you said you do more melodic metal for your own. Earlier we talked about your early influences of Visual Kei, but is that still under this category, or do we sort of fall into something completely different again?
I don't know, man. A lot of this terminology blends together these days. I'm not really in the Visual Kei scene anymore, I can say that. After that band Batar, I kind of sort of dropped out of the Visual Kei world a little bit. But I'm still hugely influenced by it in the sense that I come from more, power metal, 80s heavy metal, bands like Iron Maiden, more like operatic, bigger melodic stuff. And that's still what I really like doing here. But there's still like, God, I lost. Sorry, what was the question?
How do you categorize these different genres of metal music?
Sure. I think that's kind of what draws me to Japan so much and Japanese music, that these kind of rigid categorizations that you might have in the West, and especially in the metal music scene, like if you put together a concert in Sweden, it's like it's power metal bands only, no death metal, or it's death metal only, or it's like rock, it's country. There's no rules here in that sense to who can play what. You can go to a rock club or a rock music venue and see, one jazz rock band followed by a black metal death burning churches ass band, followed by something super melodic, and then something soft, maybe just piano ballads. And everyone stays for everything and everyone enjoys everything. And it's so much more freeing, I've noticed. When there's no preconceived notions of genre, there's also no expectations, and through that there's no limitation, and I find that immensely compelling.
How is it then when you go to performances here in Japan? Japanese people have this image of being a little bit more reserved, is how they express themselves.
Sure.
My image of metalheads is you let loose.
Yeah.
You give it all.
Sure,
right?
sure.
You are in a trance and you just go all in.
Absolutely.
How are metal performances here in Japan?
Not too different from the metal performances I've been to in Sweden, both as an audience member and as a performer. Metal heads the world over, they're pretty fierce at concerts, and the bands too are pretty fierce. I would say the bands here are way more thought out, usually, in like conceptually speaking. There's always like an image, like we are the band that are all demons, and they all look like demons, and they sound like demons, and they all have demon stage names. It's very it's very high concept here. Whereas in Sweden, if you try to do like a high concept metal band, you probably just get like called names by other bands because you're not metal enough. But
then back to the references you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Is it Slipknot that wears the masks with spikes, or is it Korn? I always mix
That's Slipknot. Yeah.
So they also have this kind of concept, right? They
Yes,
had these big
absolutely.
masks.
But they're a bit of an outlier. I mean, even before that, you have Kiss, right? But
True.
they're definitely like the exception to the rule. You'll find, well, I guess it's maybe different now, but when I did back in my day, when I was doing bands in Sweden, it was very, I was always in the most flamboyant band of the evening. And, other bands would pick on us for that. But then, most fans would come for us anyway. So we're like, huh. But yeah, I don't know. I find the blending of genres in Japanese culture to be, again, like super appealing. And not just with music, but with movies, with food. Like everything is such a melting pot, as I'm sure you've experienced here too. It's incredible. It's very beautiful and very inspiring.
Do you have one very memorable performance here in Japan that comes to mind?
Of my own that I did myself? I mean, yes, there's a lot. Probably the first show on that first tour, honestly, in 2016, just because it was the first show I ever did in Japan. It was at a tiny little live venue in Tokyo, Kichioji Crescendo, I believe it was called. And it was us and 3 or 4 more bands, not a huge place. But it was packed. It was packed to the brim, 200 people. And we had just released an album that same summer, a month prior or something. And there were people in the audience singing along, knowing the lyrics, Japanese people knowing our English lyrics to this album we just released. That blew my mind. I was like, we have fans, So for that reason alone, it was not the biggest show I've done by any stretch, but that one really I don't know, it hit my heart, a lot.
So you're in Japan, you set up your company, and you're like, I'm going to produce music here.
Yes.
And now you kind of discover this scene where actually metalheads are not that different. It's super diverse. Maybe it's less rigidly categorized. It's more fluid. What do you do? What was your kind of approach to doing this? Now you have the company, you need to produce something, right?
Yeah. Well, it's multiple things, right? So through all of this, I've still been doing my own YouTube stuff, and 99.9% of my YouTube audience is not in Japan. So I still release a lot of music on YouTube, specifically for that audience. So it's a lot of metal, like pop metal, I would almost call it. Like pop inspired metal, so very poppy but very heavy. But it's all in English for this English audience, and it's a lot of comedy in there, a lot of meme music, a lot of comedy metal, where the metal is still earnestly produced, but the lyrics and the themes are silly for laughs. So I still kind of do that without that really affecting my life in Japan. It's just what I already did in Sweden, but just doing it in Japan. But then on the side of that, I start hanging out with a lot of video game people just through my interest in the video games industry and everything. I meet a lot of people in Tokyo, and one thing leads to another. And so around 2020, right, when I was pretty fresh here, I got in contact with a guy online called Patrick Bartley, a saxophone player, hugely talented guy from America. I saw some video of his online where he was talking about mixing J-pop with jazz and the theory behind it, and how it was so eloquently phrased and so beautiful. And I got so inspired by that. So I followed him on Twitter. This was prior to coming to Japan. He followed me back saying, "Oh my God, Endigo, I'm a big fan of you and your bands and everything." And then once I came to Japan, he had a concert here in Tokyo that he invited me to. And I went there, I met him, and really through that, we started networking further. He introduced me to a lot of his friends. And through that, I started getting offers to do some light singing for some video games here in Tokyo. They're like, well, you've done music for Tekken. You're a good singer, good musician. You want to try? And I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's do it. While still doing my YouTube stuff on the side. And the ball just kind of kept rolling. I kept getting more and more offers from game companies, from anime companies to sing in games and sing in animes and do some voice acting too.
So your company basically, you continued doing what you were doing for yourself on YouTube, and then you kind of rolled into producing music and voices and songs for video game.
Pretty much, yeah.
Such as Ace Attorney.
Ace Attorney. That's
Final
one of them.
Fantasy 7 Rebirth.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Yes.
And Tekken, you mentioned as well.
Tekken, yeah, there's a bunch more. There's Street Fighter. There's an anime called Bang Dream that's pretty popular with the kids, I've been told. I don't watch it myself, but there was a Bang Dream movie. I actually watched it in Osaka for the premiere. Yeah, I sang a couple songs in that one. And yeah, Final Fantasy Rebirth was definitely, I mean, that was just last year, but that was definitely one of the biggest things I've ever done in terms of just the scale of the project. You know?
Can you tell me a little bit how it was? Do you get contacted by them and like, hey, we need someone to make music for us or to record a voice, or do you reach out because you hear of the project?
Yeah. So no. So I've actually never reached out myself. People have always reached out to me, which I consider myself immensely fortunate. But no. Shout out again to my dear friend in Tokyo, Michael Bain. CEO of Bainsoft, which is a music or like a talent coordination agency. They coordinate a lot of like talented people with projects. He also happens to be pretty much my best friend, and so he just emailed me and told me like, hey, I'm talking to like Square Enix. They want to have you sing a song for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Do you want to do it? Yes. Like, okay, cool. I'll send you the info. And that was a home recording. I just recorded that from my own studio.
Really?
Yes. Usually, well, sometimes 50-50 at this point, I guess. I go to studios. 50-50, they're like, oh, you can just do it on your own. We trust you, you know.
So you kind of set up a recording corner at your home with like soundproofing?
Yes. So this was in 2022, I believe I recorded that. And at that point, I had a different apartment in Tokyo. That was like one room was just the studio. So I had it set up and I could like go in and film or record easily. So it was very smooth, very quick recording. It's just it's only death screaming vocals, which I don't know how much. Are you a singer?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Well, compared to recording clean vocals, you know, singing, you know, you need to hit the notes, you need to do maybe some harmonies, second takes, maybe some redubs, whatever. Recording screaming by comparison is very easy. In the sense that you don't have to worry about pitch. It's much easier to edit. You can like edit in the middle of a scream if it's too long or too short. So and that was the only screaming in that song. So that was a very painless recording. And then the game came out and I heard my voice in Final Fantasy VII and it was insane as a longtime fan of the game. And I actually got a call back from Square Enix after to do a second Final Fantasy song from that. So there was a mobile game called Final Fantasy Record Keeper, I think, yes, that came out, I think last year, a new update in which they reached out again and like, hey, great job on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Do you want to do another song? So I did a second song for Final Fantasy for that one, also screaming. That one has a clean chorus. I got to actually do some singing too. So I was like, yes, finally.
So you get the lyrics, you get the whatever you need to record, and then you organize yourself and you send back the tape and they approve. Maybe you need to make another take.
Yeah, pretty much.
But you said what was impressive for you was the scale of the project.
Yeah.
How much did you get to see of the making of something like this, the soundtrack of a video game?
And nothing aside from my song. Everything is super strict always. It's literally like, hey, you're going to do one song for this game. This is the song. Here's the name of the song. If you're lucky, you get the name of the song. Sometimes you don't even get that because spoilers, you know. You wouldn't get a song called like, this character dies theme song, you know. No, I got my song. No idea where in the game it was going to be or like anything. So really when the game started coming out, when like gameplay started appearing on YouTube, I would scrub through like 10-hour Let's Plays on YouTube trying to find my song. Where is it? And luckily the name of the song was the name of the minigame in Final Fantasy in which the song is played. So I found like on a walkthrough that like, oh, go to the Desert Rush minigame. I'm like, Desert Rush? It wasn't that my song? So I looked up that gameplay and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me singing. Fantastic. So yeah, crazy.
What's it like then when, on the other hand, you have to do the voice of a character? You said you did some voice acting as well.
Yes,
This is kind of completely different.
Yeah, sorta. Well, I did Ace Attorney for one. So in the most recent release, Ace Attorney Investigations Collection 2 is the title. It's long. I voice what's the character? Eustace Winner. Who's this little kid attorney who's like super like cocky in the you know in the trials. And thankfully, as you may know, if you played an Ace Attorney, the voice acting for those characters, it's usually just screaming objection and nothing else. So that was my whole participation. So I think I did that whole video game in 10 minutes, pretty much.
Okay.
I just went into the studio. I screamed objection a couple times. They're like, perfect. Thanks so much. Bye. So very easy. But it's kind of different. You have to have a little bit of an acting background, I suppose. I don't have any formal acting background, but again, at this point, I've been doing YouTube for 15 years, not full time, but so I've done a lot of voices, a lot of silly characters. So that really comes in. But I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a professional voice in voice actress in any way. But I'm a professional musician, so I'm harder on myself with that work. I need to be perfect. Whereas with voice acting, it's just like, it's fun. I kind of go into the studio and do my thing and hope they like it. So yeah, I can't really offer any expert advice.
Do you feel like the way they process with kind of proceed with getting these projects together here in Japan is maybe different with projects you've worked with when you were back in Sweden?
Probably, yeah. I feel like, because in general, from what I've come to understand as someone who joined this industry kind of late, I think a lot of voice acting in general, in Japan too, has been like outsourced. It's a lot of Hollywood actors these days. And back in Sweden, I'm sure it's kind of similar. I shouldn't say that. I actually don't know what the games industry is there these days. But I've been very fortunate to end up in a position where like a lot of the game companies here, they do still really value working with people in Japan, people who are boots on the ground, people who are available to come into the studio, they can meet face to face, rather than hiring potentially, super good talent from Hollywood. They want to have someone here that they can sort of rely on a bit more. So
see in person.
Yeah, exactly.
We know this person, this is how they look like, this is how they talk,
exactly.
This is how they also interact with you.
Exactly. Because a lot in Japan, I feel like it's a lot of personal relations based here. Whereas in Sweden, from my subjective point of view, it's more about just qualifications, and it's just very business. Whereas I feel like, at least from how I've been, from the people I met, it's been way more just valuing the person first. So I don't know. It's very familial in a way.
What are the kind of projects that you've enjoyed doing the most in this like video game sphere?
Other projects I've enjoyed doing the most. I recently did a thing that I can't talk about, but I was asked to write lyrics for a song for a video game, and rap for a pretty cool game. So I did that together with my girlfriend. Shout out to Ali over there in the background. Hello. That was the first time we worked together. She's an incredible lyricist, by the way. Shout out. So it was the first time we worked together on a project for a video game, and that was incredibly fun for that. Bouncing off of each other, like, oh, what should we do for this verse? Like, is this reference too niche? Okay, let's do it. And then me going into the studio and rapping the thing.
Rapping is quite different than death vocaloids.
It kind of isn't, though, honestly. I usually, not usually, but I've referred in the past to screaming as basically like angry rapping, and that's kind of what it is, because in the sense that like it's very rhythmical, it's very lyrical first, and emotion driven, rather than with singing having perfect pitch. Doesn't matter if you're rapping or screaming, for the matter. It's just really two flares of the same thing to me, as a pseudo rapper and a screamer, I suppose. So
have you had the opportunity to work with Japanese metal singers or Japanese musicians, and kind of how they approach music and singing, and especially in your genre?
Yeah. I haven't worked with a lot of other Japanese metal vocalists. I'm usually the vocalist in whatever constellation I'm in. But I have been working, Japanese, but I know you had Ladybeard on the show before.
We did,
yes, with his group Babybeard. So I've don't know if you know this, but I'm their music producer as well.
Oh,
yes. So I'm saying like, well, he's Australian, but the girls are Japanese, and so I've recorded all of their recent stuff, basically, produced all of their music from 2023 and onwards, pretty much. So that's been like super cool. Having, him obviously being this loud Australian screaming man, and then these like two super cute Japanese girls who do like clean pop. Figuring out a way to mix that in a way that makes sense with the J-pop and also with the Western metal influences has been like, I don't know. Right now, that's one of my most fun projects I'm working with.
You mentioned you were talking to this saxophone player earlier who was discussing how to blend Western and Japanese musics in his field. And now you mentioned as well, like blending J-pop with this. What makes it so different, and what is important for you to keep in mind when you mix these genres and kind of produce the music?
Gotcha. Well, there's definitely a different sound just inherently from Japanese music. To keep it very simple for the non-musicians out there, the types of scales that are used in pop music, whether it's a happy song in major key, a sad song in minor key, the types of scales that are used are quite different to like the ones that are used predominantly here in pop and in rock to the ones that are used in West. You'll find a lot of rock, especially in the Western world, is very based in blues. So there's a lot of pentatonic kind of like 80s blues sounding scale, even when you go into metal and rock and sometimes pop, especially in Sweden. Whereas here, the scales are different, which makes the melodies different, which makes the emotions different. And on top of that, you have the language itself. Shout out again to the saxophone player, Patrick Bartley, who put this very succinctly. But because of the differences in language, right? How Japanese language is structured compared to, say, English, which like English has a bit of a more of a groove when you talk a little bit. And Japanese is much more, I don't remember what the term is, but it's very long, very rigid. Sentences can be very long in Japanese, and there's not really pitch accents in the way there are in English. So through that, speaking becomes different, speech patterns become different. And through that, naturally, melodies become different, and thus music becomes different. And so there's just a different everything that is very hard to articulate, but at the same time, instantly recognizable. I think if I were to write a Swedish pop song in Swedish for a Swedish artist, like it was a Japanese song, the audience in Sweden would definitely notice that this is different somehow. We can't really make out how, but it's a different sound. And that sound speaks to me a lot.
So having studied music for so long and produced it, have you been able to figure out what it was with Mook that kind of resonated with you?
Honestly, back then, if we're really gonna really break it down psychologically, I'm a trans woman, and even back then, I think I was very closeted and stuff, and I think Mook being this heavy band that was still like very flamboyant on stage, and then they did these death metal songs that sounded like Korn or Slipknot or more like death metal In Flames kind of stuff, and then mixing that with piano ballads, it lit a spark in me that you can be heavy and aggressive while still being soft and vulnerable. And I think psychologically, as a closeted trans girl at the time, that really spoke to me in a way I didn't fully grasp. But I think that transcends not just Mook, but Mook was like the first window into that. And that goes through all Japanese music, especially with rock bands and metal bands. You'll have bands like, X Japan, one of the biggest Japanese bands of all time, who are like heavy power metal, but then they also do piano ballads. And you have a lot of heavy death metal bands who do like pop, autotune. You have idol groups who do death metal. I mean, Babybeard for one. Why I love working with them, just blending those things. And I think Mook just showed a window into a larger world I didn't know could exist, sort of. Not just with music, but with life,
Do you feel like these blends are something that are more possible in Japan because of how you were describing it earlier? Everything is a bit more fluid, and people have maybe less definitions for the music genres, and so people experiment and they can put characters on stage, whereas maybe in the West it's a bit more restrictive to kind of cross the genres that much.
Yeah, definitely. I think, at least from my experience in the Stockholm metal scene, like super niche, but at least in that scene at that time, there was definitely a fear of being being bullied by other bands for being too queer, for like sticking out, for wearing too much makeup. You could get punched for that, for like having too much mascara on stage. You know, at least in that little scene I was in, and that was always like a little held me back a little as someone who really loved Japanese music. Eventually, we were able to form a bit of a visual case scene in Stockholm for a little blip of time, 2 or 3 years, or a bunch of these visual kei inspired bands in Sweden, which was a really cool era. But I don't know. There's a larger acceptance here in culture and expression, even in daily life, than back home in Sweden. With how people dress, you know, for example, it's not uncommon to see people here everywhere with like all kinds of hair colors, for example, or like dressing however they want, whatever colors they want. In Sweden, any time of year, it's you're hard pressed to find someone not wearing like a black trench coat or like a white shirt, and it's so boring. I can't stand it.
So now you're dressed fully in pink.
Yes.
How did Endigo come to be?
God, I don't know. I've had many eras. I initially picked up the name Endigo back in 2001. So, you know, 20 some odd years. I've had a lot of eras in terms of like expression in my life. I used to be super goth, if you can believe that. Wear like long spiky bracelets, spiky chokers, everything. I had this weird white era in which I only wear like white clothing and had white dreadlocks for almost 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just I don't know. I cycle through these phases. But it started very dark and very gothic and very metal. And I think a big part of that was, I mean, I enjoyed the metal music, and a lot of the bands were dressed like that, and I sort of felt some innate need to belong to something, I guess. And but then through Visual Kei, when I saw all these bands that sounded like death metal, but all the 5 guys playing all looked like little pink girls, you know, I think that like opened again my eyes a little, that like, oh wow, you can blend things more. And I realized over time that like, you know, wearing all black, it really makes me kind of depressed. So I'm gonna stop doing that, and just gradually just try to lighten up more and more, and you know, here I am now, you know.
Do you feel like it's different for you to be Endigo here in Japan than in Sweden? You were talking about how back in the days you couldn't express yourself too much. You couldn't put too much makeup on, even as a metal artist, otherwise you might get punched.
Sure.
Was it easier to kind of open up here?
Yeah, I would say so. I think if I would have never moved to Japan, I don't know if I would have ever come out as, you know, any LGBT kind of member at all. Neither trans nor even like just being bisexual was like a big reveal, you know, a couple of years ago that like I don't know if I would have had the courage back in Sweden for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, Japan's inclusivity and welcoming definitely like helps. It's a good place to find yourself, from my point of view at least, you know.
It's interesting because openly it's not so much talked about or discussed.
Sure.
Gay marriage is not yet legal here. You can do gay partnerships, I think, in Shibuya.
Yes,
Tokyo.
And I believe there's 1 or 2 other coups too, but it still needs some work.
And yet it feels sometimes more accepting. How have you experienced this?
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound kind of funny when you put it that way. But so in Tokyo, there's this district called Shinjuku Nichome, which is Tokyo's gay town, usually known as. This little district that has 200 or 300 little gay bars, queer bars.
Wow.
in this little district. And really just hanging out there, meeting people there. I started meeting a lot of drag queens there, which was a world that I was curious about in 2020, but didn't really know anything about, or really like, I was a little nervous, like, oh, what are they gonna say? What are they gonna be like? They all look so pretty, and I'm just me, you know. But I started hanging out a lot in Shinjuku Nichome. I met a lot of what are now a lot of my best friends there. You know, queer people of all colors and shapes, and yeah, just having that space, you know, any night of the week, and you know, be able to be yourself unapologetically with, you know, 1,000 other people who are also doing it, you know, 7 days a week. That helped me a lot. Shout out to Shinjuku Nichome. Yeah, it was just an incredible place to just discover yourself, really. I've also, of course, I'm fortunate enough to not work a traditional 9 to 5 at a Japanese company where, you know, maybe you have to adhere more to social norms and company rules, you know, being my own boss. So I'm in a very privileged position like that.
So you got to meet all these people and meet drag queens among others.
Yeah.
And then in 2023, you actually went back to Sweden to take part in the Sweden drag race.
Yeah, I was in Drag Race Sweden. Here we go. Can of worms. To this day, as a recording of this, I'm still the only ever Japan-based contestant on any Drag Race season ever, which has been like pretty cool. A lot of like opportunities just from that alone. But yeah, I went back in, I guess it aired in 2023. We actually filmed in 2022. And the thing about Drag Race is that it's, in general, if you've watched any of the seasons, it's always like, there's always like utmost secrecy around the production. No one can ever know you're filming because of leaks and all these things. So they always film the show in absolute secret. And me being based in Japan, if I'm suddenly in Sweden for a month around the time Drag Race might be filming, according to rumors, you know, people would put 2 and 2 together. So me and my partner and a lot of our friends, we set up this like elaborate scam. We went to a bunch of restaurants for like 2 weeks, took a lot of fake selfies, and throughout the like month and some weeks in which I was in Sweden filming the show, I would just post fake Instagram stories, fake tweets.
At restaurants in Tokyo.
Yeah, literally. Like, oh, we're in Todokizaku today. And like, we would all coordinate. Okay, tonight we're all going to Todokizaku. Are you good with that? Like, okay, next Friday, can we all go to the bar? Okay, I'll prepare the photos. So just kept the facade up for like so long. And that was like weird. I got stopped in Stockholm by fans who like, Endigo, like, oh, what are you doing here?
Aren't you at Toriki yesterday?
Literally, that happened. Like in central Stockholm, someone was like, wait, I saw your story. Weren't you in Tokyo yesterday? I was like, oh, family emergency. I just landed. Huh? Like coming out of Victoria's Secret with shopping bags, you know. Yeah, okay. So I had like make up stories for that. That was a little sus, but yeah, it was great fun. And yeah, I got on Drag Race. I was on the show, and then because of that, I was able to. I got a lot of new opportunities in Sweden through that. So I actually left Japan in late 2023 to pursue all these new ventures in Sweden. And I moved with my girlfriend, and we moved there together in about October, November 2023. And like, okay, let's do this. Let's live in Sweden. Let's do this mainstream pop star thing. I signed a deal with the management, and like I was going to do all sorts of projects that, you know, eventually didn't happen. Because in around March of last year, I was getting a little, like Ali, my partner, was in America at the time, and I was alone in Stockholm for like a month. And I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to be alone in Stockholm. I'm going to go to Tokyo for a bit, say hi to my friends. And I came here in March 2024, having left Japan 4.5 months earlier. And it took me like 2 nights at my Airbnb in Tokyo to like, I was like just up crying, all like, oh, this was a mistake. I got to come back. So I was supposed to be here for 2.5 weeks alone. After about 1 week, I texted Ali, who was in America, and like, do you want to come to Tokyo? We got to unpause our life. So she flew into Tokyo. We spent a week here last March, April, around Hanami, and we just decided together, like we gotta press undo 20 times and just go back to Tokyo. So all of 2024 was basically undoing the move and everything that came from that. And then eventually in August, we were able to get back here. So what was supposed to be a lifetime, maybe move back to Sweden, turned out to be like 4 months of joy and then like 6 months of just like, how do we get back?
And that's probably why so many of your fans have been waiting for new music videos, and new productions from you, which you've just released recently, right?
Yes.
Lip Killer.
Yes, Lip Killer. Lip Killer.
In the music video, we also noticed today our former guest Kathy.
Kathy's in it. Yeah, there's a bunch of hidden characters in that one, but Kathy Cat is there. Shout out. She's so good in the video, like playing poker and everything. Yeah, Lip Killer. You know what? I don't think I've told this in public. So Lip Killer, we actually wrote that. So Ali wrote the lyrics for that one too, and I made all the music, all the production. We actually made that song in March of 2024. And that song was supposed to come out in April last year. That song released on January the 1st, and it was finished for 9 months. And it was supposed to, It was supposed to be an entry for a certain international televised music competition, and it was in until like that's why it was supposed to be released in April, and then I had an opportunity to have this song in this.
Is it the one
music.
I'm thinking about? Maybe.
Very likely. It was. I was in talks with a lot of producers, and a lot of things were cooking. So we put that one on hold in April, and they're like, "Oh, we want to save it for the music competition," and then we just kept saving it, and I was in the rotation until the very, very end. And at the very end, it was like, oh, there's like 5 people that they're like picking between for the last slot, and in like November, this last November, they were like, oh, okay, sorry, they skipped you. Sorry, bye. So I'm like, all right, Shogunai. Now we have Lip Killer. What do we do with that? If it's not going to be there, like, let's make a music video. So we called all our friends in Tokyo and like, hey, we want to make a music video for this song. Are you all free to come to this venue and we just film it? So we rented a little snack bar in Tokyo and we brought all our friends in. And we filmed the whole video in one day. Ali filmed the whole thing. And we went home and I edited the whole thing in like 3 days. And yeah, here it is.
Yeah, it is a great song. People can go listen to it. It's live now.
Yes.
Any more in the pipeline?
Yeah. We mentioned Babybeard. I've been working very closely with them for a while. I produced their last 2 singles, Twisted Kaiju Tale and Opti Squad back in 2023. Composed those, produced those, mixed those. By now, I've been asked once again to produce more music for them. So we're making an album. We're making the Babybeard debut album, which is gonna be cool. I'm gonna leave it to Ladybeard to spill all the beans on that. But I think from me as a musician and as a producer, whatever effort would have gone into producing my own metal I'm just channeling that into Babybeard. It's cool because it's the exact type of music I want to do. The pop, metal, crazy, experimental blend, but at a much bigger platform. And I know like there's so many people who just love the Babybeard songs I produced in the past, and just I just like it's kind of a dream gig almost, you know.
So we'll make sure this airs right after the release, so people can listen to the album you produced with Babybeard, with Ladybeard, our former guest.
Yes,
on the show.
Exactly. If it's out, we'll see. But it should be at least public knowledge by now. So basically, after Sweden, the whole point of the move to Sweden was for me to sort of pursue this like solo rock career. Because after Drag Race, I got all these opportunities. I did all these huge shows. I did these huge festivals in Sweden. 30,000 people in Stockholm. Most of them sang along to my songs, which was like even more insane.
That must be quite a crazy feeling.
I can't even. You gotta check the videos. It's insane, but extremely validating. All these childhood dreams coming through, and the idea was just to kind of pursue that. So I started writing a bunch of solo music. Lip Killer was one of the songs, and I think sort of with the move back to Japan, I did so much soul searching, and I'm like, well, I could stay in Sweden forever and live in my penthouse I got here in Stockholm, and like it's all great, and I could probably just keep releasing music forever and be a solo artist. But will that make me happy? I don't know anymore. What really makes me happy? And it was a lot of soul searching, and I figured what makes me happy truly is just being in Japan, being with good people. And it's honestly less about what I do, more who I do it with. And all the people I do want to work with and do want to associate with are all in Japan, you know. So the whole solo career, Lip Killer, I think Lip Killer was sort of like a little bow on top of that whole year of like the solo career. And I really just want to keep doing the video game music that really fulfills me. Singing in video games, voice acting, and also producing music for other artists. So
if you could choose, who else would you love to work with and produce music for? Mook, or any specific games you have in mind?
Mook would be a dream come true. Honestly, no, I would feel like oh, I'm not worthy. Right now I would love to. There's a lot of artists I would like to work with, but I'm really like laser focused on video games right now. I would love to compose more music for video games.
Any game in particular?
I would love to do music for an RPG, something like a Final Fantasy. But like the 2 Final Fantasy songs I've done, like they were written for me and I sort of just sang them. But going forward, I would love to just, get a little more behind the scenes, compose some more stuff. Maybe some big symphonic metal pieces, games like Final Fantasy, stuff like Elden Ring, From Software games. I'm a big fan of the Yakuza game, or Like a Dragon, Yuga Gotoku. They also mix a lot of metal with a lot of other genres. So that's like one of my dream projects to work on.
You mentioned working with Donna Burke, who was also on the show.
Yes.
So maybe there's something to do with her and the video game world.
Yeah, so her and I have already worked a lot together. I produced 2 or 3 songs for her, I believe, in the past. Full circle on all these things. The saxophone player I mentioned before, Patrick Bartley. So the first thing I did with Donna was she asked me to make a song for her, and we made a song called Tournament, which was inspired by the video game Valorant, and we actually had Patrick Bartley play saxophone on it. So that was the first thing we did, and it was super cool to have all those worlds kind of merge. And yeah, we did a lot of projects together in the past, and yeah, maybe I don't know. I don't think she does a lot of video games right now, but I'm not sure.
You've been in Japan for quite a few years now already. Back to Sweden, back here.
Sure.
Have done a lot of projects. How do you feel like Japan has changed you as an artist, as a person in the last few years?
Asking all the hard questions here. How has Japan changed me as a person? Well, it definitely made me more open, I can say. I mean, I don't know if it's changed my... Shit, I need to think about this. Okay, I think Japan in general has made me, just as a person, more open. Again, getting the courage to come out as bi, come out as a trans woman eventually, dress the way I do, be more open, be more unapologetically me. I think a lot of that was just like, shout out to Japan, A lot of that came from Japan, and that in turn probably bled into my music and the things I put out there, being a bit more authentic and being a bit less safe.
You said in the I think there's this famous clip of you on the Drag Race Sweden show where you are kind of figuring out whether or not
you've done your research. I'm very impressed.
Was
absolutely.
This kind of like the process of Japan kind of helping you open up and kind of figure things out?
Yeah. Absolutely. There was actually, there was a long scene in Drag Race Sweden that they cut out, but I did this whole talk where I basically say like, all of where I am today came from Shinjuku Nichome, really, and meeting all these people who are being, being themselves there, and sort of having that sort of support network, really, and a lot of hype men, around me, like, you can do it, yay! Like that was what I was missing. Could I have found that in a different country? Maybe. I didn't find it in Sweden. I tried, but I don't know. There was something about just, I think Japan attracts a lot of curious and creative people. A lot of people who might feel like their hometowns or home countries might be, I don't know, lacking in like creative freedom, creative expression. And a lot of like fun people. I think you gotta be kind of a fun person to want to seek yourself to work in Japan. Ali usually says that all the broken toys come to Japan, if you know what I mean. No, it's definitely a place that can like foster creativity, and I think that's always like really spoken to me.
So the only thing missing is organizing a drag race here now.
Definitely. Well, there's rumors of a Drag Race Japan. So.
Well, we had Kira on the show.
All right, Kira.
So there is a big drag community.
There is
surely something to do here.
There's a big drag community in Tokyo. There's a pretty vibrant drag scene in Osaka too, from what I've gathered. Haven't been here as much, but yeah, there's a lot of it in Tokyo, and you'll see more and more the international drag queens come and perform in Tokyo. There's a big show called Opulence in Tokyo these days, where a lot of the famous queens from Drag Race will come and perform with local queens in Tokyo. And it's at a huge venue, and it's always pre-packed, like thousands of people from the images. So it's cool. It's becoming more globalized,
So for all the broken toys that come to Japan, they can go to Shinjuku Nichome, find you maybe on one of those nights.
Yeah, find me alongside with find me and yourself. Yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone, but it's for, I think if you see yourself in anything I'm saying right now, please come to Japan once, come to Shiniku Nichome, check it out. It's great. And if you don't like it, you don't have to come back, But give it a shot.
If you had any advice to give for people interested in kind of getting into music production in Japan, into voice acting in Japan, what would it be?
Sure. I think the best advice I could give you is figure out, there are two things really. Number one, figure out what you want to do. And then number two, find your niche. So with number one, I would say whatever you would already want to do in your home country, try and do that here. I see a lot of people online who are like, I want to get to Japan at any cost. How can I get there? Any advice needed? And, a lot of people end up maybe a little disappointed in that. So whatever your dream is, if your dream is already to do voice acting, like in your home country, try and come here to do that. If you want to be like the greatest chef in the world, try and become that here. And in terms of voice acting and singing especially, and I can't guarantee this is going to work for anyone else, but really find your niche, So for me, that's sort of become, one of them doing the death metal singing for video games. Apparently there wasn't a lot of death metal vocalists, English speaking, available in Tokyo, professional for games. So I've kind of like stumbled into that. But figure out something you can do that only you can do. And try to really, really hone in on that. And then just, network a lot, be very open-minded, and just, get around, be nice.
You mentioned a lot of your opportunities coming from meeting people and kind of one thing led to another and eventually right place, right time.
Yeah.
And also that you produce like 50% in studio and 50% at home.
Yeah.
Is it something that's mostly remote nowadays?
Well, I believe pre-COVID, it was definitely more going to the studios. But in terms of just the video game gigs, it's sort of in my experience, it's been a little company to company, depending on who I work with. So some companies definitely do prefer you be in the studio. It also kind of depends on how good you are as a record producer. If you're like an amazing singer, but you've never recorded anything, they might have you just come in anyway. But no, you know what? I think it's still majority going to the studios, actually. A lot of the gigs I do at home, they're usually not Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth level. They're more like low stakes, singing for an English teaching book, something like that. But I think me also being like a recording engineer definitely helps. Like they can save a little manpower probably.
If you can do it all at home, it's possible, but otherwise it's still pretty much in studio.
Yeah, definitely. But the more you can offer and the more you can build yourself up, the more Japan is going to give back, I suppose. Vague way of saying it, but still.
Thank you, Endigo, for the insights.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Toby, for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll be back again next week. Bye.
See you then.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future conversations. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here are a couple more that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time.